What's up guys, I'm Chris and today you're watching a full review of the How to Read Minds 2 kit by Pete Turner and Ellusionist. Welcome to the channel and thanks for tuning in. If you haven't, please consider subscribing, like the video, and any questions or comments, just write them down in the comments section below. I'll do my best to answer them, or at least find an answer if possible. Also, don't forget to join the Chris Edwards Magic Secret Access group on Facebook. Okay, so I did an unboxing video of the How to Read Minds 2 kit, I think a couple weeks ago, and I had said in that video that I was hoping to do a full review within a week. Now, this is coming a week or two late, and that is mainly because there was a lot to unpackage here and learn and use. So in order to give a full review, I thought it would be best not to rush through things and actually test the majority of these things out so that I could give you my honest review. So if you're interested in the contents, I would recommend going back and watching the unboxing video. I show everything other than the Rise gimmick, but today I'm kind of going to go over what is taught in this kit. Kind of a list of the routines and props that are included, and then just my experience with them. So first off, I just want to touch on the quality of everything again before going into the tutorial, because the tutorial is kind of going to be the majority of this review. For me, the quality of everything in here is very well made, very well put together and thought out. There are a couple of things that you have to build yourself. Now, all of that is included in the tutorial, and there's nothing overly time-consuming or difficult to construct, but there are a couple things like the two-way out envelopes. So right off the hop, I will say I wish that those had been constructed so that they were ready to use out of the box. But again, it doesn't take long. It's easy to do. So let's get into the tutorial, talk about what's in here, what you're going to learn, and then I'll kind of touch on the props as we go throughout. So the first thing that they're going to go over is the Rise gimmick. Now, I can't show that or say too much about it. However, on the box, where is it? Includes the spine-chilling Rise gimmick. Now, for those of you wondering what the Rise gimmick is, this may tip it a little bit. The Rise gimmick to secretly signal strangers. So for those of you who are wondering what the Rise gimmick is, just think about that. To secretly signal strangers. Okay, that might give you an idea. Now, for me, I was hesitant on whether or not this would work, but I had said in the unboxing that I believe if you have decent audience management and you select somebody who's not intentionally trying to call you out, it'll work. Now, to take that a step further, I have had an opportunity to use it a number of times, and I can say for me it has worked every time. But again, with that, I was cautious about who I selected to help me with that phase of the routine. So will this work every time? That's completely dependent on your participant. Now, as far as it goes, I did construct, and it's not really construction, there is a box here that is specially made to house the Rise gimmick, and I put it together. So here's the box. Inside are the cards that you will be using for this effect. Okay, so those fit in there, and then inside everything's self-contained, but my Rise gimmick is in there. So I think it was well thought out as far as how you would put this together. Basically, what this allows you to do is a hands-off any card at any number. Now, it uses a well, it can use a psychological force, but you're not actually forcing anything because this is all hands-off. So that is where the Rise gimmick comes in. It allows you to signal or cue your participant to select a certain card. And like I said, it has worked for me. But if you pick somebody who is intentionally one of those people who wants to out you, then they're going to. Okay, so just be cautious with that. It'll make sense if you do pick this up. But, and there are other ways to achieve the same effect, but you are compromising a key aspect that the Rise gimmick allows you to do by having this completely hands-off, where you never touch the deck other than to take it out of your pocket and hand it to them, still in the box. So that kind of covers the Rise gimmick. Pete does talk about quite a few things that are involved with this, so you do get a lot of content with the gimmick itself. Now next is the two-way out envelope. You know, people know it looks like an envelope. It looks like a pay envelope, right? The difference is that you have multiple outs with that. So with that, you will get the build instructions to follow along to, and then you will get some different routines and ideas. Now, with each prop or gimmick, there is specific routines taught, but I think where the value is all the different ideas that Pete says. So, you know, he'll say, you know, you could do this with it, or this with it, or this with it. And that is where you're going to get all these ideas on how you want to use it for the best results according to your presentation style and personality. So not a lot to say there on that. The Shiner, I really do like the Shiner. There's a routine taught in there that I really, really like. It's kind of fun, playful, but also very, very powerful. Now, the Shiner is great. I love the size of it and how you can adapt it into a stack of billets or palm it or whatever you want. But on top of that, Pete also talks about different Shiners that he has used or built or put together that I think are really good here. One of the things he talks about is how to turn a coin into a Shiner. So essentially, you can do like a witch hand routine with a regular coin that your participant is handling the whole time, and then you'll switch it out for your Shiner. So then you're getting information and they think that you're just holding a coin. So, you know, some great ideas in there on how to use Shiners and different Shiners that you can use. So I really like that area there. Next, you have a section on billets. So you get a stack of billets in the kit. Now, I'm with Pete. He says that these are his favorite billets. I do really love these billets as well. I've been using these billets for years. Since the How to Read Minds 1 kit, I've been buying refills when they come on sale for like $1 for 50, and I think that they're great. They fold well, they handle well. Between those and the 1914 billets, you know, those are good. I like them both, but these are good billets. So you'll learn a routine here, and then just different ways to use billets. There's also a section where Pete does a billet peak that isn't taught in here, but he tells you like this is something you can work towards, and he references 2 books by Richard Bush, Peak Performances and Peak Encores. So after hearing that, I reached out to Richard and I got myself Peak Encores and Peak Performances. Now I have read a bit of both, and there is some amazing information in here. So check those out if you haven't. I'll eventually try to do a review, but I don't want to give you an estimated time of review because books take me forever. Next, you have a section on Equivocate. So this is Pete's take on Equivocate, or Equivoke, or Magician's Choice, or, you know, there's a number of names for it. I really, really do like his take on Equivocate. He also uses some techniques and subtleties by Michael Murray, which he references. He doesn't give away Michael's secrets, but he references, and I think it really does add a lot to the Equivocate. So that is something I think that holds a lot of value in this kit, is just Pete's teaching on the Equivocate, because it's great. After that, you have the Bulldog clip. So the routine that's taught in there, I mean, there's a number, and then there's also a number of ideas, but really this is a switching device. So I will kind of bring that out here, but basically you have a billet in a clip that you will give to your participant. Now in the tutorial, there's a routine where Pete is at a bar or something. It's a diner, and in this diner there are 33 or something thousand $1 bills, all signed by different people who have come in over the years, signed a bill, and they stick it up on the wall. Now, Pete hands the clip to this lady in the bar and tells her to hold on to it, and then go pick out any two bills in the entire area. So out of 33,000, she picks two. He asks her which one she wants to use. After that, he takes back the clip and then brings out the billet. Of course, the billet reads the name on the bill. Now, what's neat about this device here is the billet that I just opened, which is blank, but just for the sake of doing it, the billet that I just opened was not the same billet that was in the clip. So it is very deceptive. You can use this a number of ways, but I really do like the concept and the construction of this. After that, there's a section on gimmickless switches. So basically, if you've left the Bulldog clip at home, how you can achieve the same effects using gimmickless switches. And there's a lot of different discussion, talk, and routining ideas in there as well. After that, you have the Kuron envelope. The best way that I can explain it is if you guys have seen the Unbelievelope. It's basically the same visual concept where you have a playing card in an envelope. You take out the playing card. They visually see your hand go in. They see your fingers through the window, grab the card, pull it out, and that's the card that, maybe it's a prediction. With this routine, the routine taught in here, it's a signed card to envelope. So that part is magic. It's not mentalism. But then Pete goes on to tell you how you can use this gimmick as a switch device for predictions or whatever, right? Because instead of a playing card, you could have a billet in there, and they can clearly see you pull it out of the envelope. It's been in there the whole time. And then when you turn it over, it matches whatever, right, for the prediction. So I do, even though the routine taught in here is magic, and this is a mentalism kit, it's the teaching afterwards that I think the mentalists will be able to apply to this gimmick and prove useful. Next is the watch, force, and peak. So this is Pete's version of, there's different watches out there on the market, like the Turner watch, the SB watch, the PETA smartwatch. Now, this is Pete's take on doing what those do without being digital or using any kind of technology. So this is an analog method of using a peak with a watch. Now, it is quite unique because Pete says in the beginning, not only is this an analog version of kind of what those watches can do, but his way of doing this is unique in the fact that he hasn't seen anyone use it this way before. And I don't really know how to explain it, but essentially, rather than just a force, you are getting a force and a peak, right? It's a way of you being able to peak what time they went to without them knowing. I don't know. But yeah, so peak and force, it's good. It's good information, and it is something that I will use if I'm not wearing my SB watch or my PETA watch, because now I don't very often because I have an Apple Watch and I use that with different magic apps. So it's not often that I'm wearing a regular watch anymore, which is unfortunate because I really do like those watch effects. With this teaching, if you see somebody that has an analog watch that would work with this, then you have another routine with a borrowed watch. Next is the spider pen, which I think it's, I will use it sometimes because there are times, a time and a place, right? So there are times when I enjoy the shock factor of certain tricks, or like the gags, kind of like The Web by Jim Pace or whatever. I do enjoy doing that at times, and this I will also do at times, just depending on time and place, if it seems to fit. But I think that they could have done without it in this. However, like I mentioned in the unboxing, even if you're not a fan of the pen, which I'm really not, you likely will still use the psychological force that Pete teaches, right? Because he's not a huge fan of the pen either, but he wanted to still make this section worth it. So he gave you a lot of knowledge and information on psychological forces, and it is really, really good. So that kind of wraps up the teaching and routines with the included props. But there's so much more still with this that is just phenomenal. Now, next they go into teaching routines with cards, billets, and different things. Now, this is more just routines. So the first one is called Yes, No. So basically, this is an impromptu effect. You take 2 blank business cards or billets, and you write yes on one, no on the other, and you simply play a game of choice, right? So you mix them up, you hold on to one, you place the other one face down on the table, and it's almost like a witch hand, but with 2 billets with yes and no on them. Where this really shines is the routining, right? And the teaching, because Pete goes over this routine a number of times with different outcomes, and it really is both entertaining and impressive to watch, right? So this is something where once you get the hang of the handling and how this works, it's always going to be different. You can go on for as long as you want to, or make this as short as you want to, but it is really, really good. After that, there's a 2-person telepathy kind of section. There is a routine in there, but it also talks about how to cue your participants to either become an instant stooge without even knowing that they are an instant stooge. It talks about how to kind of incorporate some dual reality. But on top of that, it teaches you ways to build an entire 2-person telepathy routine or even a show using code that can be made up on the spot. There are some really, really good techniques in here. Things that are extremely deceptive, that there's no way to backtrack, and it allows you to do impossible things that can be done on the spot or taught to another person almost immediately. It is very valuable. And even if it's not something that you think you'll use, there are pieces in here that you're going to add to your knowledge base no matter what, because it's almost like a mini jam session with Pete and another guy who does a 2-person telepathy show for a living. So there's a lot of great information here. The next one is the 21 card trick, Reimagined. So everybody who's performed card magic or beginner magicians, you probably heard of, learned, done, or seen the 21 card trick. Now, these are the types of tricks that I always shy away from. I should mention this isn't a card magic trick, okay? This is mentalism, but I do want to reference this just because I think it makes sense to what I'm about to say afterwards. But I've never liked card magic where you are dealing out piles and, there's like 3 minutes of instruction for your participant, different steps. And, for me, the 21 card trick was always like, by the end, nobody cared anymore what was going on, right? So this uses that same principle, but applies it to mentalism. So he performed this on, I don't know if it's Durant or Durant, they call him G, but he performed this on him and he was completely blown away. And honestly, so was I when I seen the trailer. I didn't really know how this could be done. You give somebody a deck of cards, you have them deal out 2 piles, but it seems very non-restrictive. You're very loose with your instructions. So you say, I want you to deal down 2 piles. The more cards that are used, I think the better this routine will be. But I don't want you to feel like that's part of the method. So if you just want to deal down 3 cards in each pile, that's fine. It leaves it very open. Naturally, people are probably going to deal down about 10 in each pack or whatever, right? So from there, they select a pack that they want to use. They shuffle them up. They pick a card, place them down on the other pack. Then the cards get kind of shuffled and dealt a number of different ways. Now, none of this is boring. That's the thing with the 21 card trick as a magic trick. I just found that by the end, before the reveal or before the trick was concluded, I was bored. None of this is boring because of the presentation and the pattern and how this is applied to mentalism. But ultimately, what card that they are thinking of. It is very clever. It is very well executed. And then the part that really kind of blew me away was before even starting this trick, you can write down a number. You write down a prediction on a billet, you fold it, and you set it off to the side. What I love about this is after you've completed the process and you've divined their card, their card is now somewhere in this stack of 20, 30 cards, right? When you open the prediction, it has a number on it. Might say 7, might say 14, might whatever, right? They will deal down that many cards, and that's where their card will be. So it's just an additional phase, and that part fooled me bad. So that's the 21 card trick. It's, I guess, reimagined and presented in a mentalism way, and I think it turns what was for me a boring trick into something that fooled me and is actually very, very powerful. Next is Old But Gold, which is essentially a pin code divination. Now this uses a calculator, but not a calculator app. It can be a physical calculator, or it can be, the calculator on your phone. Not actually your phone, but the participant's phone. So first this is done with 4 people in the tutorial, and then it's done with 2. There's a number of ways to do this, but basically you are able to divine a randomly generated pin code between 4 participants or 2 participants. Again, this also can be predicted. It's a neat principle, and there's a lot that you can do with it. So I think it is worthwhile learning this, and it's just one of those things that you'll always be able to do because people always have their phones on them. Next is Out of This Galaxy. So this is another card trick that is so good. Like, honestly, this routine alone is so valuable that it could be worth the price of this kit. Maybe that's just my opinion, right? But it is super, super strong. So this can use a borrowed shuffle deck. You will have your participant deal down a number of cards for them, deal down a number of cards for you. You will take the cards out of the room with you. You will call them over video. And the reason for you having the cards is because first you want to show them how impossible this really is. So you hold up a card, they just see the back of it, and you say, is this red or black? They'll say what it is. Eventually they're going to get it wrong. Then you turn around, show them that they were wrong, and you say, okay, now you can appreciate the impossibility in what I'm about to try. From there, they will one at a time hold a card up, and you will divine whether it's red or black with 100% accuracy every time. Now, this doesn't use a marked deck. It uses a very clever principle, and I've done it a number of times. I even through practice, it works every single time, and it is so, so good. So not only are you out of the room divining each card, like the color of each card before they turn it over, you get all of those right, and then as an added kicker, you can divine the last card, the value and suit, right? So this is such a powerful routine. Now, I should mention, because I don't want people to get the wrong idea, you couldn't call somebody up on a video chat and say, hey, go get a deck of cards and do this, right? There is some setup, there is some preparation, but this can be done in front of your participants as you're just casually going through the deck. There's also a kind of subtlety that Pete talks about in here in a little game that he plays as he's setting up the deck, right? So that he can do what he needs to do without them knowing what's going on, because essentially you're playing a game with them. And it's actually really, really good in how this works with setting things up. After the setup, they can shuffle this. They can shuffle it, mix it up. So I know that sounds bizarre, but that's where it fooled me, and that's where it fooled Brad when Pete was doing this to him, because they shuffle it, right? So essentially you're just handing them a deck of cards and you say shuffle. After they shuffle, they take the cards, they give you some cards, and you leave the room. So from there you get to do the routine, and I can't say enough about this. It's so, so clever, and it's something that I'm going to be using all the time. All right, after that you have Out of This World, which Pete has a unique spin on, right? So essentially it's just your regular Out of This World. I really like the presentation that Pete has with this. So he uses it as a way of influence, right? He tells his participant that they're going to deal out the cards, red and black, red and black, red and black. Whatever they think the card is, they'll deal it down in the red pile or the black pile. But Pete is going to influence them to get it wrong every time. Now, after they've gone through about half, he'll say, okay, now, whenever you're tired of getting this wrong, just say now. So they'll deal a couple more down, they'll say now, and he goes, okay, from here on out, you're going to get every single one right. So they continue to deal down, and in the end, he shows them that in the beginning, they got every single one wrong. In the end, they got every single one right. And then there's also some added phases and ideas to throw in there. But ultimately, I really do like this presentation. And you end clean. Like, there's not a cleanup with this. There's no moves that you have to do, because you're eliminating a certain part of the out of this world plot that makes it so in the end, like, you don't have to do anything. I do really like this version. Next is playing card amnesia. So this is an effect where a participant selects a card, or they look at a card, and then they completely forget what that card is. Now, this one, the method threw me off. This was not what I thought it would be. It is clever, but at the same time, I don't know if I love the method. They can call you out on it before you even get to the main part of this routine. There are a couple things that I want to touch on, that they have a jam session later. And there are a couple things that Geraint or G mentions that apply to different tricks that are taught that I think are absolutely brilliant. Because the one thing that I didn't really love about this specific routine, it had to do with the method, but G found a way to clean that up so that if they spoiled it before the actual outcome, you could show that, no, this is completely fair, and you could prove it, right? So that won't make a lot of sense, but I did want to mention it because there are certain things. And also, like with this, with the old but gold pin code divination, G also had a really, really clever idea in there on how to really up the level of this to where it sells it to be so much more than what it originally is, right? So anyway, I'll get to the jam session. Actually, I think I kind of mentioned what I wanted to from the jam session, but so yeah, that was playing card amnesia. Part of me likes it, part of me doesn't. It can work, but it's one of those kind of bold things that I don't know if I'm bold enough to do. Think of two. That is basically, your participant looks at the faces of the cards, thinks of two, you're able to divine them. There's not much more to say about it. It is clever, but that's what it is. I don't know what else I can say on it. Then we have the Rainman book test, which I do actually like a lot. You do need to do this with more than one person. It kind of uses dual reality, but not really. I know that the words dual reality can shy people away, but once you understand the method, this is something that even if you don't like dual reality or you don't use dual reality, I think you will use this, because there isn't really a way of backtracking. This is super clever, but essentially it allows you to use any borrowed book and divine a word with 100% accuracy without even really touching the book. Or like, what's nice is that when it comes to the handling with the spectator, you don't handle the book because it's not gimmicked. You don't do any kind of peeks, but you will get the word every time. And it's just because of how this is used. And I really do like it. They give you some other ideas in this, and there's kind of a jam session on it. So you learn the actual routine, but then you learn so much more that, you can really make this your own, or you can start to incorporate other things like predictions or confabulations. You can turn a book test to either just divining a word or adding all these other layers and elements. So it is a really good section. After that, you have any picture at any number, which is essentially any card at any number using billets with drawings on them. It's really good. It allows you to divine something and then also state its location. And then last, you have memory shuffle 2.5, I think it is 2.5. Now this is cool. This is a memory feat, right? But what this allows you to do is have your participant shuffle the deck a number of times, spread it out. You look at it for 10 seconds. It doesn't even need to be that long. But then they'll take the deck back and they'll start dealing cards. And you go by telling them, okay, we're going to do the hearts. And you name every heart card that comes next before they turn it over. So the first phase of this, I think it's Dwayne. He's over here and Pete's where I am. He's turned around and we're okay. And Pete says, okay, we're going to do the hearts first. And he goes, okay, the first heart that you turn over is a queen. Next I'm seeing The number's 46, so it'll be a 4 and a 6, and you just go through the entire deck. And then you do that with each suit. And yeah, there's different elements and phases to this, so it doesn't just seem like each phase is a repetition of the last. So it is very, very impressive. It is a clever method, and it's something that I think a lot of people will use. Finally, you have the jam session. Throughout the kit and all the contents, there are kind of a number of different people that have different input and experience to talk about each element with Pete. So it really is, there's a lot of different ideas thrown out and a lot of experience, combined experience. But the jam session, there's 3 or 4 guys, they're just sitting there kind of talking about different things. And there is a lot of really, really good things said here, a lot of great ideas. And, you know, like I said, some of these things in the jam session, if it weren't for those, I may not perform some of this stuff. But just something that was said in the jam session made me go, that completely solves that. And not that it was a problem to begin with, it was just something that I personally probably wasn't going to do because of a certain element. Whereas different things in the jam session made me go, oh, I'll totally do this now. That's brilliant. So anyway, that's the contents, that's the tutorial. This is a long video. I guess ultimately, you know, there is some setup and some reset with certain things. I can't really go over that. Angles, can't really go over that. Price. So this is $150. I think that's worth it, right? I've seen on Facebook there's a few people that maybe aren't so happy with the kit. Me personally, yeah, there are some things in here that I won't use. There are some things in here that I think are silly, like the spider pen. But one thing that did stand out to me is that you have high quality materials in here. A lot of things that I will use as far as the props go. But then the teaching, right? And these routines, right? So for $150, getting this and then 9 hours of teaching and 20 different routines, I think that the stuff in here is good enough and is powerful enough and practical, stuff that people will actually use. So to me, if you're going to use it and you're getting this amount of content and it is quality, not just quantity, then for me, it's hands down, it's worth the price. Now, I know others may not agree with that, but I don't think $150 is overpriced for everything that's included here. I don't know what else to say, positives and negatives. I've kind of touched on everything as I've gone through between the unboxing and the review here. So I don't really know how to kind of break it down and gives you the positives and negatives. I think I did that throughout. So with that, like, I think this review is already probably going to be over a half hour long. I don't want it to go on any longer. Ultimately, personally, I would recommend this. I think if you are a beginner mentalist or if you're getting into mentalism, you're going to learn a ton of stuff with this and stuff that you will use. If you've been doing mentalism for a long time, I think you'll still get something out of this. You know, maybe you won't feel like you want to spend the $150 to get some experience. But like I said, I've been doing mentalism for a number of years. I have a lot of really good stuff like that I've purchased and learned, right? But I still learned a lot with this kit, you know, and different things that I can apply to things I already do and new things that I will use. So I hope that kind of gives you a good amount of information, answers some questions. But like I said, any more questions, just ask me and I will do my best to answer. With that, I'm going to stop here because this is long and I have some more reviews coming. It's been busy with Christmas and the holiday with shows and 4 kids and all of that. So anyway, lots of reviews coming up. So with that, we will see you at the next review.